Hey there, I'm Vonnie from Vonboo Furniture Designs. Welcome back to my channel. Check out this fabulous vintage drinks cabinet. It belongs to a client of mine and she would like me to wrap some decoupage paper all around it. But first thing we need to do is fix some repairs, and I'm starting with the base. This base is flush to the floor, so over the years it's acquired some scratches and dents, so we're going to put her on her back and we're going to fix all this, and then we'll add some risers. This is also a good opportunity to vacuum all the cobwebs underneath. And now I'm just sanding away where I've applied some wood putty to all the dents. These little plastic things can be nailed in, and I forget what they're called, but they just add the slightest bit of height. So this will protect the base from any future damage, but keep in mind we may be putting some legs on. Inside this part of the cabinet is going to be sprayed gold, so this will be a lot easier with the top removed. I'm also going to preserve some of the timber on top of both sections, so having the top off makes this a lot easier. And see these routed edges? I've found this little tool at the hardware. It is not a carbide scraper because it actually isn't a sharp blade, but it has these shaped edges which allows you to get into these routed edges and scrape off, gently scrape off the existing varnish. So I've gone through all the grids to get her really ultra smooth. And now I'm applying my favorite sealer to raw timber, and this is Anysign's Dark Wax. It's super easy to apply, and I love how it accentuates the natural grain. This is the other bit of timber top that I've already sanded, and I've used the tool to remove the varnish from the routed edge. So I'm just coming in now with a sanding pad, 240 grit, to finish off that edge. This is the other side of the lid that I've taped up, ready to give it a bit of a spray, and I'm using an automotive gold spray, so I know it's super tough. And now I'm applying the gold paint to the inside of that cabinet, and once this is dry I will give it another coat. Now we're getting ready to apply a primer and some paint to the rest of the cabinet. First I just want to show you how gorgeous that timber top came up with the dark wax. I'm priming the whole piece with Mint by Michelle's primer called Mint Grip. For the area behind the glass sliding doors, I'm using a mineral paint by Mint by Michelle called Ballet Flats. It is the perfect pink to match the paper I'm going to use. So I'm giving the inside 2 coats. Now I'm putting her on her back in preparation for the decoupage. And this is the decoupage paper I'm going to use. It's by Mint by Michelle and it's called Pheasant, and I'm going to use parts of 5 A1 sheets. And I've decided I'm going to start with this area first. I will be pasting the paper with Mint by Michelle top coat. This is my favourite applicating tool. This is the bag the paper came out of, a very sharp craft blade, and a water mister. No matter the size of the decoupage paper, I start the process the same way. I apply a couple of inches of the top coat, and then I grab the felt applicator and I gently push out any creases and wrinkles. The bit of plastic will protect the paper from all this rubbing you're doing with the felt applicator. And don't forget, it's a natural property of paper to react with wrinkling to a water-based product. So they will come out when the paper is dry. You may have noticed that both doors have this bit of raised detail. So what I've decided to do is cut the paper around this instead of decoupaging over the top of them. And the reason why I'm doing this is because I don't want the paper to be distorted, as I will be joining up more paper around the piece. And remember to do all this trimming before you apply any paste, and make sure the blade is sharp or the paper will tear. Here's a close-up of what I'm doing here. So I'm not going over the detail because I'm going to put some gold gilding wax on there anyway. See how I've got a pot of paint there and the can of paint? That's holding the paper in place while I just get this first bit done, and then I will just decoupage it as I usually do. If you're new to my channel, what I usually do and what I find works really well with these papers is to only paste a couple of inches at a time and use the tool to smooth out any wrinkles and air bubbles only a couple of inches at a time. Unlike other papers, it's really not a good idea to paste a whole area and try to tackle the wrinkles and the creases all in one go. What I'm doing now is just trimming the paper to make the whole process a little bit easier for me, as I do have a few obstacles to go around, and I know the paper will join back up really easily. Now I'm just trimming around the hinge, and this is something I do as I approach it. I don't do it before I start the application, because as you apply this paper, it does stretch a little bit. So if I were to do it before I started, it would end a couple of centimeters out. So I do it as I approach before I apply any paste. I give it a bit of a trim with a sharp blade. This is what it may look like at this stage. It's a little bit messy. There may be some tears, which we can fix with paint later. But if you notice, there's no air bubbles, there's no wrinkles. And this bit down the bottom we can trim and paste underneath. For this bit, I've repositioned her again, as I do find decoupaging going down like that works well for me anyway. It's like the gravity holds the paper down in place. This one's pretty straightforward. We just have those drawers to maneuver around, but as long as the flat bit of the drawer is glued down properly, we'll come back and fix any edges later. This bit here I didn't mention before, but I trimmed this bit off the inside of that panel, as when I applied the paper it stretched as it does, and this was a little bit of excess on the inside of that panel. So I've kept it so the paper, so the pattern flows. So I've glued that little strip on, and now I'm gluing that other piece. Now this actually ends up being quite messy, but so easily fixed with some paint. Oh, and I should mention that misting the paper helps it stretch too. So if you need to stretch it into position, give it a bit of a mist, not a saturate, a bit of a mist, and the paper will stretch beautifully. Yay, so we've got the first paper on. I'm really happy with it because there's no air bubbles, there's no wrinkles. We do have some gaps where the edges are, but we can fix them up once it's dry. There is a little bit there that needs to be touched up with paint. There's a little bit there that needs to be touched up with paint. And down here where I've done all this joining, I have to apologize because I forgot to video me applying the black paint, but can you see there already that I've applied some black paint to where those joins were, and you cannot see the joins now. So now I'm just, where I've joined the paper, the flower needed a bit of adjusting, and the head of the pheasant. So I'm using a very fine brush And I'm actually using some anti-slime chalk paint here because Scandinavia Pink matches that flower perfectly, and Honfleur Brown matches the detail in the bird. So she's looking pretty good now. I've done all the touch-ups with the paint, and you can't even see where the joins are now. Ready to go around the corner now. I noticed how this flappy bit appears quite tight compared to the pasted bit. Just needs a little misting, and that'll relax the fibers in the paper, getting rid of some of the moisture there. Now it will easily paste flat, and you can try and stretch it a bit towards the other pieces. Remember, if there's a gap, we can always touch it up with paint. So now I'm attaching part of sheet number 2, and I didn't mention earlier that Pheasant in the Mint by Michelle Decoupage paper range is one of a couple of her papers that do join up to create a seamless pattern. That's why we chose this one, because I know I can create a seamless pattern going all around this piece. Now listen, don't worry if you get to this stage and your first paper's distorted slightly, because it happened to me because I cut it into so many pieces. As you can see from before, paint touches up any imperfections. This side is finished now, so I'm using a spray varnish to seal it, but I will seal twice or 3 times during the process. Now I'm up to the drawer section, and this can be a little tricky, but the surfaces are flat, which should make for an easy application. However, the drawers aren't the same level as the main body of the cabinet. So I couldn't get the felt applicator to slide along there. So I've got a smaller applicator, because when you're doing drawers, it's important to get the flat surface, the middle section of them, applied properly without any air bubbles, without any creases. If there are any gaps or surfaces that aren't quite adhered properly around the edges, we're not worried about that, because we can take the drawers out and we can fix those edges. Now, going around corners, I always like to give it a bit of a mist so it does stretch a little bit. And the most important thing is to not get any air bubbles trapped as it's turning the corner. It can be very easy to do this. Then it's just a matter of applying it down the side like we did on the other side. Now I'm up to the little door up the top, and I think I must be up to sheet number 4. I'm not going to go into too much detail with the explanation here, as it is the same as that initial door down the bottom. It's got the little detail, raised detail as well, so I will be adhering the first bit, and then using the blade to trim around that raised detail. And it went on really well, as you can see. This side went on really smoothly, but as you can see, I'm going to have to touch up joins there. I did get some tears, and then I didn't have a piece for that bit, so I'm going to have to fill it in with paint. I should tell you that I'm using Mint by Michelle Mineral Paint Time and Space Black. This little section here needed a couple of coats because I had to cover that white. But then I decided to paint in the whole area. So you will see me come in with this very small fine brush to paint the black around all the images, all the flowers and the leaves. And I just wanted to show you here that, you know, you come in and do some touch up with the paint, but the black paint isn't the same black as the black background. And because I had quite a few touch-ups on this side, I thought I'm just going to color all the black in with the black paint. It was a little time consuming, but really worth the effort. I've used a blade to slice around the drawers so I can find all these bits around the edges that need sticking down. I'm using the same top coat and a very small brush to just put a bit of paste where it's not sticking down, and then I'm using a rubber brayer to really flatten that edge. And to get rid of the excess that's hanging over, I'm using 240 sandpaper, and this also makes a really flush edge as well. I've gone ahead and painted the edge of the drawers with the Time and Space black, and now I'm using the spray varnish to seal. Now all the decoupage paper's on, we're up to applying some finishing touches, and I'm going to apply some gold gilding wax to this raised edge. And what I do to achieve a neat application of the gilding wax is to use the card that came out of the decoupage paper, because really you don't want to put any tape on your decoupage surface. We did decide to attach some gold legs and a couple of wine glass racks. I'm going to show you a really cool trick to get these glass sliding doors in and out of a cabinet. They are supposed to just lift up and pop out, but sometimes they just don't want to do that. And I've used here a car jack just to literally lift it, say 3 mils, and voila, they're in. We want to reuse the original brass handles. They're just a bit tarnished, so I'm using the wire brush on my bench grinder, and they come up brand new. Here she is, and you know what, I really surprised myself. I'm so proud of what I've achieved here. She just looks amazing. I really hope you've enjoyed this mega decoupage makeover, and don't forget to like and share, and please, if you have any questions, leave them in the comments, and please subscribe to my channel. Links for all the products I've used will be in the description, and if you'd like to see more of my work, you can find me on Facebook and Instagram. Thank you so much for watching.